Can I interrupt this to ask Randy Smith if he's planning to ski down the hill while he's on the Zoom today?
Yes, I am. I am in beautiful uptown Maine, and this is where I am at.
And if you wipe out, is it going to be our fault? I mean, we don't want that responsibility. You know.
We were having a great time. And look at this. I go out dressed like this.
Yeah.
You are an Iron Man. You're a lifetime skier. I can tell. That's what lifetime skiers do.
I just wanted to drop by and say hi. I'll see you guys
That's
later.
great, because I wondered what snow looks like. We haven't seen it this year.
You've forgotten already, Bruce.
Did you really mean drop by? You don't want to say that, do you?
Slide by.
Slide by.
Yeah, there you go. I'll see you guys later. You take care.
Okay.
Have fun, Randy. Have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good skiing.
Hey, John.
10 o'clock, and this is Lancaster Woodturners weekly coffee hour number 138. We're here on Zoom today. We're not at the studio. I see 37 screens. We usually get into the 40s. And I also want to note that my own channel, where all these videos are posted, just topped over 500 subscribers, which is a landmark. I know Mike has 50,000 out there, but you can put it on a graph, you know, and it follows a pattern. You just got to keep on plugging is how I look at it. I think you could do a lot of things to market them. I'm pretty sure you've done that, Mike. I don't have a clue, so I don't do it. And it's a difference anyway. We're doing this for fun. You're doing it. Well, you're doing it for fun too, I'm sure. But you're way out ahead of all the rest of us. That's for sure. Anyhow, this is a show and tell morning. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be your moderator as usual this week. It's a show and tell morning, as it often is. I know Don has some stuff he wants to show. Put your hand up, Don, if you can. And anybody else, especially anybody who's new here, who we haven't seen before or hasn't shown us anything in a while, you got anything to show, put it up. Let me see. I had it. Oh, yeah. Barry's not with us this morning, and the reason is that he's out with Martin Stolpe looking at wood. Those of you who live in Lancaster probably know Martin. Martin was the city forester for a long time. He's a remarkable character. He knows everything about trees and wood, and he has choice bits of wood and ordinary wood as well, stashed in barns and lofts and everything all around Lancaster County. And he wants to get rid of it all. Barry and I went with him last year and we made a little video. I'll probably put a link to that in the follow-up if I remember. We just visited one of his locations, his home and another location, and he's got a dozen of them, I think, and they're out looking at them this morning, seeing what wants to happen, because Martin would like to get out of having wood stashes all over the county, and that means he wants woodturners and furniture makers to come and get the wood. So we'll have more to say about that in a bit. Let me see. Let's start with, I'm going to show some stuff as well this morning, but not for a while, because I'm doing so. I have a completely new setup here. I'm here at home. My computer died, so I got a new computer, and I got a whole lot of stuff to plug into it, and it seems pretty stable, and I got the A10 plugged in for the first time with a second camera, but you know, to switch to that from a webcam and to turn off the background, it's more song and dance than I want to do right now. So let's start with those who are going to show and tell here today. Take the spotlight off me if you would. Yep, thank you. And I'm just looking to see who we haven't heard from for a while, so we can start with them. Let's start with Ken Vasko. All we saw of you last week was the groundhog. What do you have this morning, Ken?
Club meeting and Nittany Valley Woodturners, and we had Don Wilson in January do spears, train us on how to do spears. And I put out a club challenge to do some spears, and I just wanted to show you my results. This one is redwood from out west. I was out there vacationing, and it was a little bit bigger when I started. This was my first one. And then I decided I would try this. This was a piece of chestnut from my backyard.
Looks like the planet Jupiter.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Oh, there we go again. Thorn zoom.
No, what's the method you're using? Are you turning to an octagon or a template, or what are you doing?
No, I just put a ring on it. I'll put a ring around the equator, and then I just keep turning it until the ring goes away. And I use these I made these up and made them in my chuck. Actually, they work well for a display too, so I'm going to make a couple of these just for display.
So those are cup chucks that you're using.
Yep, cup chucks.
Made cup chucks. Good deal.
Okay, that's all I needed to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, Bert, we haven't heard from you in a while either. What do you have today?
Okay, yeah, so my latest creation is a football. I've been making sports related urns. They got a threaded opening. It's about 2 and 15/16 inch holes, so they got no problem putting stuff in. I have a jig, so I thread my blocks. The blocks I make out of oak, it takes threads really, really nicely. This one was a challenge because I had to make the football, and the football's got a point on either end. And then I had to mount it on a bit of an angle, so it looked like it was going to be on a kicking tee. And I just finished this last night, so I was I'm pretty happy with the result. I learned a lot. I don't think I'll ever make another one.
How did you do it, Bert?
Segmented. It's a segmented hollow form. So I built it up in halves and glued it together. And I had to epoxy the base onto the ball on the angle, and then turn around and drill out the ball portion in order to get an opening into the ball hollow form. It was a bit of a challenge, a bit of a brain buster, but it was fun. That's it.
Questions and comments for Bert?
So why did you want there to be an opening into the ball, into the football?
It's a urn, so in order to get the ashes in, you got to have some place to put the ashes in. So
got it.
and then I write on the bottom when I do a physical proof of the volume, and so this particular football is good for 300 cubic inches. This little baseball one is 175 cubic inches. So I actually proof the volume of each one when I make them, because I'm probably going to have to make the balls a little bit bigger, because the average target for is about 200 cubic inches. So I'll probably have to increase the size of any future balls by probably a half-inch diameter to increase it to over 200 cubic inches.
You look like you're a little bit out of scale on the stitching too. Like it seems to me you got more stitches than a baseball hat has. So there's
Yeah, I did it all by hand. Like say, this is the first one, so I had to build a template to actually get the line on there, and I just wood burned it in. So I did it by hand. But I thought anybody that looks at it would probably recognize it as a baseball. And if it's going to go in the ground, I wasn't going to get too carried away about being absolutely anatomically correct.
Barry could probably make you a device that would follow that shape.
Probably, yeah.
Look at these.
Any other questions for Bert?
That's it.
I'll bet those are things you bury people in.
Why?
Pardon?
Why did you make a segmented thing and then paint it over?
Oh, because the segments were just made out of any kind of wood I had. Some of it's maple, birch, whatever I had available. I just segmented it. And then because it's a football, I wanted it to look like leather, so I painted it. And that way with segments, you get the ability to make any shape you want, and you cover it with paint, so who cares, right? If it's going in the ground, it doesn't really matter.
And the baseball would be a grounder then, isn't that what they call it in the baseball field?
That's probably true. I've got I think I showed my golf ball here in a previous session, and I was talking with some people yesterday. They said, "Oh, they got to get that one. I want that one for my husband." And I said, "Really? You want to take him so he can get a hole in one?" She thought that was pretty funny. Drop him in the hole would be the first time he had a hole in one.
On that note, I'm going to move over to Don. Don was in touch with me earlier. He's mastered screen sharing, and we were asking him to produce some, show us how he makes the flowers. So I think we're going to see that. You ready to go, Don?
Yep. Here we go. Okay.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to run through the photos, quite a few of them. Some of them I'll run as if it's a video. Now, this was a demo that I did at the club, and these are taken from the cameras through our computer system. And I'll stop every now and again and explain what they are. So we'll start off with the first one, which is 4 pieces of wood which have been glued together with paper. They're square, 1.5 inch square. And on the left-hand side one, you can see a little piece of wood which has been hot glued on to the center. The center's been found so that when you're bringing your towel stock up with pressure and you're on the other end of the, on your headstock end, the pressure won't split the wood when you want to put your spigot on the far end. So we're just measuring up to see where I am. It's on the chuck, and this is the template I make. Now, when you're doing these, I don't think you can see this while I've got that on. I'll show you the drawing afterwards. But I just make certain where I am with the shape of the board, because this is the inside that I'm going to be turning first. Now we're taking shape.
I don't have any network. I don't know why. I'm not getting any network.
Who?
I'm going to mute that person if I can find him. Bowman, you'll have to find him.
Yep.
Carry
So,
on, Bill.
As you saw, I was running through with some turnings, and I've just stopped the lathe now. And with the template that I've made, I'm just checking to see how I'm coming along on the shape of the bowl of the flower. It's almost like a video. I'm showing here on the two templates that I've got. They're cut out, and of course they fit together, which is the piece that I was using to show the shape of the inside of the flower. There we are, showing you there. And you can see it's a split screen. We've got side view and overhead screen. Going into some more turning and sanding and polishing. Now that is the inside of the flower turned. The pieces are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, because, and I've got a bit later on, it shows you how I cut it in half or in quarters. And when you turn them round, after you split them, you need to go back so they go in 1, 2, 3, 4 in reverse order. And that way they fit together again. And there we are, now fitted onto the lathe. Now, what we didn't show here is, because this is Blue Peter stuff, if anybody knows what Blue Peter is, it was a children's program over here where they used to make things, and because they had to glue them up, they said, well, here's one I made before. And this is one of the flowers I'd already turned the inside, and I'd actually reversed it. And I'm now going to put a chuck on by bringing the towel stock up and putting it onto the center, onto the chuck. And we start turning again. Checking for thickness on the point of the flower. Stopped and checked again. Stopped and checked again.
So you're at some risk of turning right through there if you don't pay attention.
Absolutely. That's why one keeps stopping and checking the size of it. That's my bald head got in the way.
We'd know it anywhere.
I'm now drilling the piece, because before you think about taking it off of the wood or the chuck, you need to drill the center hole. Sand and polish.
So you do what a lot of turners do, don't you? As you make each surface, you finish it right there, sand it and polish it before you go on to the next.
No, I don't. I do the whole thing in one go.
Ah.
The whole thing, then sand it. Because what you've got is, as you can keep refining it even as you get down to the base. As you get to this part here, you can be refining this even more to get this as even thickness up to about this point on the petal of the flower, so that it's fairly parallel. I'm now just thinning down the end. And I'm just about to part it off. And there we are parted. Unfortunately, the chap didn't take any more photographs of me fitting this up onto the lathe. So a little later on, I've taken some of my own, which I couldn't fit into these original photos. I've now got the small piece going onto the lathe for the first turning, which is exactly the same as the first, shaping it. And then there it is. And the blue piece of starter piece that I'd done a week before, back on the chuck, showing it. And then, oh, I'll go back one bit. Did I put a pencil mark on there? Yeah, I put a pencil mark on the base about a ruler's thickness away from the end of the bowl, so that it gives me some indication when I'm turning the smaller ones where to start getting the base of the flower turned. Now this is the other piece, turning it the outside now. I've got a little light there which I'm looking through because it's so much smaller, and you can see the shape coming. Drilling the center again, sanding, polishing, sanding all the burrs off of the inside of the petals, and then parting off. And that was the end of the, but there's the flower assembled. Now the next piece is, that's how I've split them. I use an old carving knife. Some people use chisels, but what I find with the chisel is you can damage that edge that you want to glue up. So by using a very fine old carving knife, and that was my mother and father's wedding present, so you can see how old that is. And I just split it into the four and then re-glue them into place, as you can see. Just hit a rubber mallet with it. Now, the other point I'd like to just make here is, although I've got them numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 here, if you're going to do a piece which is going to be solid at either end, in other words, not like the flower where you've got an open end, but you want the two ends to be for a candlestick or a bowl or something, mark them 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4 on the corners. And when you re-glue them in the reverse, make certain the 1 and 1 and the 2 and 2 are fitting on the inside. That way you'll get a far better lineup between your turning on the inside when you turn it round. So you've got a nice continuation of that curve that you've made.
The thing is that they're not always exactly the same. And if you put it again together out of order, you'll get discontinuities.
Absolutely. And it's doing 1, 2, 3, 4 is okay, but by doing it that you make certain with these numbers on literally on the corners that you've put the 1 and 1 together.
So Don, when you're doing the glue up, I assume you do that in 2 steps. So you do it in one axis, put in your paper joint, and then flip it 90 degrees and do the other one?
No. When I'm gluing up, you're talking right at the beginning.
Right at the very beginning, yes.
Yeah, no, I take my block, piece of newspaper, I just tear it up so I got a piece to fit the 2 pieces, and those 2 pieces, and I also got a piece then that goes across the whole of that piece. So I glue these. Now the tip with this is you don't use too much glue. If you use too much glue, it will penetrate through the paper and you'll have a harder job to split it. So I glue those 2 together, glue those 2 together, Then I put glue on both sides and put those together. Then I clamp them all together by making certain they're flat on the bed and just literally clamp them all together. Is that clear? Happy?
Yeah, it's not what I would have expected, but I get it.
What would you expect you to have done? To do 2 and 2 and then put the 2 together?
I would, yeah, but yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, but you'll find it because it's square, and if you are square, by using your clamps, you should be able to get it square and nice and parallel. And if you do it all in one, you can make certain when you put the clamps on, if you put the clamps across 2 pieces, across the cutting line, shall we say, you will make certain that you're pushing those 2 pieces flat and those 2 pieces flat as you do it. So the whole thing comes as still as a square.
Makes sense.
I was always
go back and show
I
the
was
picture
always
of the
taught-
two put together?
I was always taught as a furniture maker and wood turner, you know, glue one thing at a time. Start to get more than one thing slippery with glue, they're going to slide around on you. But I can see that what you're doing works for you as well. So
Yeah, it works. I've never had any trouble. When I come to do the other part.
well, just a sec, I cut somebody off there who had a question. Let's get that question out too.
Yeah.
Don, can you go back to where you had the 2 pieces assembled? I just want to see that again.
2 pieces.
The prior picture.
Flower, the actual flower.
Yes.
I'll show you those in a minute. I'll come back
Okay.
to those. Yeah. What I was going to say was when I've split them here. When I come to glue them up, then I do only do 2 pieces at a time, because that is difficult to hold those in line to make certain you get the shape of your flower equal round the base. So those I do, but in the main part, gluing with paper, all 4 together. That's the numbering system I was mentioning. You see 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. There's the piece upside down, and there's the flower being assembled.
Very clever. Extremely clever.
Hey, Don, how do you cut the petals apart? What are you hand carving that? Or are you using a burr, saber tooth or something? Or how do you cut the slots that define the petals?
Well, that's the whole point, Jim. What you've got is
It's all turned in.
it's all, you see, when you first start, I'll go back to this one.
Yeah.
Because I started off, there's the inside. That's the inside of the flower I'm turning now. Okay?
Yes.
When that is split, that's what it looks like.
Ah.
Okay.
Now you start to turn that.
Yep.
And you turn the inside of the flower.
Don, what I wonder is how hard would it be to use 5 blocks instead of 4? And I say that because an awful lot of flowers have a 5-fold symmetry, not 4-fold symmetry.
I have tried it and not succeeded yet.
Why not? What happens? What goes wrong?
Trying to get it so that you can get the pieces glued to make that square. I think I've got to the point where really I've kind of given up, John, and just
that gives me a challenge. I'll think about that.
Yeah.
Don, Don, what kind of wood is that?
The piece that you saw there is oak, and the main piece was sapele.
Okay, thank you.
Don, when you first mounted it in a chuck, did you glue on a tenon?
No, first of all, when it's in its original first state, I put it between centers and put a spigot on.
Okay.
I'll show you in a second when I'm coming up to, we've gone through that lot.
And then when you re-glue it.
That spigot inverts.
Once the spigot's done, Right. There's the spigot, as you can see, but it's been reversed. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So
Don,
that's the original spigot in the paper glue.
I could catch that in a chuck. I mean, the one-way chucks have 4 jaws with spaces in between them.
Yeah, I think that's the question: is how do you put that back in the chuck?
Right. I normally just bandsaw these 4 pieces off, and then I put that in the chuck like that.
Between
Okay.
again.
I've got a step center on.
Yeah.
I've got a step center here.
So it's not in a chuck, it's between centers.
And then
between centers.
Then you create a new center.
I create the chucking point. Which
Can I
take us back right to the beginning.
on the centerpiece, Don? Is it possible to make the center petals wider so that they would the very end, so they'd come out closer to the edge of your flower?
Well, the inside, when you're doing the inside turning outside first.
yeah. No, I understand, but I'm just asking because the inside, it looks when you have your 2 pieces together of the inside turning, that it looks like there's space to have a wider petal on the inside turn and inside turning.
Yeah.
And I was thinking if you made that the second turning a little bit larger in diameter initially, that what would happen is you could then make it so it would actually fit inside, but then the petals would be wider on the outside.
Yeah, you can. There's so many things you can do with it because, I mean, I've even made this where the petals are flatter.
Okay.
More like a daffodil. But that means you've got to increase the size of your timber to be able to get that to be flowed more like that.
Understood.
Like that. And remember, if you do a daffodil, the center is made out of a solid piece of wood. It's not made out of, as we have done here.
Have you ever tried undercutting the upper lips to get it to curl down?
It is very difficult. I haven't tried it. That's the shape you see there. It's quite a curve on it. I'll show you. The one that I've just got behind me, so I'll show you. But this is just putting a little bud. Again, I brought it into the step center, in through the center of the flower, and brought my tailstock up just to be able to put on the bud of the flower.
Now you're limited there by the flower could very well be hitting your headstock if it was much bigger.
Right, it could. So there's another method of doing it. You have a dowel which is attached to your headstock. You have turn a dowel on it to the sides of the hole of the flower, and you then fit it up on the dowel with the dowel coming through and your tailstock, and you can turn that way. Okay. And
a lot of everything.
Anything else before I stop that share?
It looks like you're using 2 legs.
Right.
Is one of them
As I said at the
Axminster?
The beginning, all the blue ones that you saw was actually the demonstration. Now, I didn't realize that the club lathe on the head had a big boss out here before the thread came on, so I couldn't do it, hence why that tip there. It caught the piece of the lathe, so I had to wait until I got home and use my own lathe to finish it off. So this is my lathe in my workshop.
Have you got more pictures to show us, Don, or should we move the conversation on?
Right, I'll just show you the flower.
Okay.
And there's the flower.
All right, very, very handsome. Now turn it so we can see inside, yeah. There you go.
All right.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice work. Anybody else on this before we move along?
Yeah,
Great
it looks
talk.
like you have a pistil or stamen in the middle. Do you just take a dowel and form it and just glue it after the fact?
Sorry, I missed that.
The portion of the flower, that the reproductive part, the pistil and stamen, did you just take a dowel and create that and just glue it in the middle of your flower after the fact?
No. The stem, I glue in.
No,
That's
inside the flower. That looks like the
same.
reproductive part of the flower. It looks like a pistil or stamen. Is that, or did I not see that?
It's connected to the
this
stem.
here.
Oh, okay. All right. I see. All right. Thank you.
It's
Okay.
all part of the stem.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Super presentation, Don. Thank you.
Just one quick one, which I didn't show at the beginning. Always make a drawing. So you've got some idea of what you're doing and make a template from that drawing.
That's essential.
Okay.
Hey, Don, also, why'd you choose oak? Why did you choose oak?
No reason at all. Whichever
Well-
wood I've got available, which is square.
We've
Well,
had some.
I think what would be nice is if you weren't painting them, is to use like embellishing paste on it and fill the pores of the oak. It would give a nice finish to it. So
Yeah.
anyways.
Well, that's what I tried with this, but unfortunately it went red all over.
Okay. Okay.
John, there is just one more thing. Everybody talks about English yew. Can I just take 2 seconds to read a fact? This is in the book we've got. It says, the yew tree, Taxus baccata, is one of the few British native trees that can grow in the shade of other trees. It is evergreen and possesses waxy needle-like leaves. Only the female trees develop red berries. The flesh of these can be eaten, but the seeds and all other parts are poisonous to humans and livestock. Trunks are often fluted with flaking reddish-brown bark, and being multi-stem can produce very broad crowns. The oldest, sorry, the wrong piece. On a hot day, the yew can give off hallucinogenic vapors from the waxy leaves, and inhaling its fine golden pollen could alter your mood.
Oh, well, there you go.
I want some hue.
Don, thank you so very much. That's a great contribution, and I really admire the way you've taken the photographs and you've got those to work. It's lots of fun to do photographs of your work, even if you never show them and just learn from them. There's tremendous amount of information in your own photos.
What I found is I forgot to press control when I hit the button to bring up the pictures. That's the only thing I was doing wrong. I wasn't hitting control.
Well, you got that to work too, so that's all great. No, okay, I'm going to go down the line now. We got about another 25 minutes here. Doug, what's up with you?
I just had a question for people. My Powermatic lathe, the variables, the inverter drive seems to be shot, and I was wondering if anybody had any experience with that, or on Powermatics, or if I just go to just replace it.
You might want to go out to the Mustard Monster, Google Mustard Monster and look under electrical, and you'll find some information there. I know there are companies that will repair those, so it might be worth investigating that.
You said Mustard Monster?
Mustard Monster.
I've heard a lot of people say that you get dust or dirt and junk in there, and sometimes it just needs to get cleaned out. But if that,
Okay.
I haven't experienced that myself, but I have heard of those things going and being replaced.
Rich Colvin has just put it in the chat as well, so you got the Mustard Monster link. In fact, it's his Mustard Monster at his own site, Colvin Tools.
Most VFDs have a thermal shutoff in them that if it gets too hot from too much dust, it'll actually just turn the VFD off. So sometimes just blowing it out really good will get it to go, and then power it off, power it back on. But if it's been heated up, it could be damaged. But it's good, blow it out first and see if that's what's causing it.
Okay, thank you very much, gents. That's all I have, John. Thanks.
Bruce. Good
So
morning.
I do have some things to show, but I wanted to address that audio issue from the Lancaster meeting. We started that discussion before the meeting, I guess. And I don't know if you guys use the output screen from the ATEM, that beautiful program mode with all your views on it.
We are now using that.
It's really convenient. In the bottom right hand shows your audio output, and I think you had a combination of things going on the other night. I think the echo was probably between two mics, but also I think you were clipping because the audio input was probably too high to him. And you can see that immediately on that thing. If you're going into the red, you need to decrease the gain on that control, and it makes a huge difference once you stop clipping that mic. But I just throw that out there because it's just showing right up on the screen and you see it, and it's very easy to fix if that's the issue. Anyway.
Yep, that's great, Bruce. That's what we're learning by trial by fire, and
that's how we have all learned this. And the only way I know that is I've made that same mistake, obviously.
We appreciate all these feedback. We did find that we did have two mics going. We had the lavalier mic and we had the puck mic on the table in front of him, and that was a mistake to have both of those on. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes that's a hard thing. I found with those puck mics, I don't get that echoing, but maybe we usually use a headset on the speaker, which may make a difference compared to a lavalier mic as well, which is more on the directional. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about was, maybe for the last time in a while, will be composite or pieces that are made with epoxy as well as burl. And I say I've just had enough of turning these for a while. I think I want to put away my carbide tools and my epoxy and go back to wood for a while. But I had an idea from another piece I made of trying to get a natural edge of the burl to show in a piece, and tried it in a couple different ways. But I thought finding a burl cap that fit completely inside the mold so the whole edge was there would probably be the way to go. So this is a piece of red mallee in a silicone mold, ready to be poured. And I flattened on the bandsaw. I took a few pieces off so I could use that burl somewhere else, but also had a flat above the level of the mold so that I could weigh it down. The other thing I do when I make these pieces is I take the cap over to the disc sander and I try and flatten the back of it a little bit so that you don't have all kinds of voids and such that fill up with epoxy. And it also helps to get the edge more flat on the other side, because what you're looking at is actually the bottom of the platter. The top of the platter is the other side. So does that make any sense? So now if I can actually get the screen to move, there we go. So here's filled with epoxy. I went with yellow because I really wanted this deep red burl to show, and I didn't want to use a darker color. I wanted something contrasting that would allow it to be pretty much translucent and be able to be seen from the front and the back.
It amazes me that you're going to use your batteries as weights. What about bricks or rocks? I mean, something that if one of the battery falls into the epoxy, it's cooked.
I guess that's a good point. I do actually, and it doesn't show it here, I usually use epoxy tape on the bottom of the drill just in case some epoxy seeps up through the piece, which can happen on occasion, so that it doesn't glue your drill to the piece. But that was a nice flat, and I've never had any actually fall into the epoxy. But I've used lead, but you know, I don't have a 10-pound chunk of lead sitting around the shop. I try not to, actually.
Bruce, what do you do if you accidentally lift the drill because you needed it?
That's why you have two or more drills.
Oh, okay.
But
you guys,
I think in this particular burl, it's probably heavy and dense enough that you probably don't need the weights. The weights are really just an insurance policy, because if you've ever had a piece float in the middle of a project, you know it's worse than anything else that can really happen. So anyway, this is how it looks out of the mold, and I think I even give you the view of the other side taken out. And we've had some discussions before about pressure pots, no pressure pots, and I think when you look at this piece and you see that it was not done in a pressure pot, that there's no reason to have a pressure pot with slow cure epoxy. But anyway, this has a hole drilled in it for a screw. I tend to use a plate on these. You could use whatever you want to turn it as a piece, but and the interesting thing is I always try and wind up with my center having wood underneath it, but that doesn't always work out.
Now, was that the top or the bottom?
This will be the top of the bowl, the bottom of the casting. So this was the top coming out of the casting, but the other side of it is actually going to be the top of the bowl, which is why you screw into that first and do the back of the bowl. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Got me. Also, if you notice in the very beginning how we had kind of 3 lobes here, you could envision a bat or whatever you want to envision it is, but you'll see it come up in a manner. So here's the same configuration. The bottom was not completely flat, so you do see some things going on, and you see some epoxy dwell into those pieces, and any surface bubbles or voids here are all going to get turned away anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So here it is on the lathe. I guess like Doug, I have a big yellow machine as well. What I really wanted to show is how you've got this natural edge that now goes all the way around the piece, which was the goal. It was interesting to me that it wound up actually being into the center, which I didn't really anticipate, but you know, every piece of burl, you're never quite sure what's in it until you look inside. This is right off the tool. Then once you sand it and polish it, the look really changes rather dramatically. And what's interesting, and I can't figure out how to fix it so that it comes out on the front because it looks better with the convex, but on the back is where you really get the 3-dimensionality of what's left of the burl and the spikes and the other things that are left in. And it's you really need a convexity to do that. So I have to think of what the right piece to actually make that show rather than a platter to show on the front side. So anyway, here it is in a better shot. You can see that it really is translucent. I do challenge you to find a single bubble because you just don't get bubbles with slow cure epoxies if you're careful. And that's it. And remember those 3 pieces, as you saw the original, it still has that shape and that profile. You have the natural edge around it and translucency of the yellow, which I really wanted to be able to see through it quite well.
So what did you mean when you said you were done?
Inlet on your dust collector.
What? I'm sorry?
Question on the inlet on your dust collector.
You noticed that. I didn't actually bring that up. So I learned something from this forum, and I tried that. This is the, what is it called? The vortex stack?
Velocity stack.
Velocity stack. $20 on Amazon. And I don't know. I had a big gulp on the thing before, which I don't think was very effective. But I'm not sure I get anything better with this. But it was worth a try. And I could certainly see the stuff going down it. And you may have the velocity inside, but I don't feel like there's a lot of velocity outside it that's pulling it from a wide range. But you certainly feel the velocity on the inside. Now, we need Barry maybe for the engineering piece of that. But
the diameter of the on the hose, what size is that hose? Because on Amazon, it's not clear. They call it a 4-inch. So is that
4-inch?
Outer
4-inch.
diameter?
Yeah,
it fits right on a standard fitting. It fits. It matches with what we use for hoses.
Yeah, it fit perfectly. It was not a stretch at all. I pulled one piece off and shoved it on.
I had a little flare on the end of my vacuum hose that was so it would fit. It was one of the ones that would fit over, and it fit right in there, just perfect. No
So
issue.
is that a vacuum hose or a dust collector hose?
Dust hose.
So it's 4
dust
inches.
Collector should be a vacuum hose because you don't want it to collapse on you. So I'm not sure I get the difference.
Well, I have a 4-inch hose. I use the expandable aluminum dryer tubing at that stage. So it's 4 inches in diameter.
On that velocity stack, I actually put an anemometer in front of it. When I built one out of plywood, it looks exactly the same as that, but from the shape point of view. And I went from the anemometer reading, just don't care about the digits, just the number. It went from like 350 units. And when I put this on, it went up to over 500. So that just told me that there's that much more air coming from my shop going into that pipe than there was without it. So take it for what it's worth. It it definitely made an improvement on my dust collection. I mean,
I bought a $20 anemometer from Amazon. I haven't got around to doing the work. I just trying to figure out, is it worth it? You know.
The question I have for you is, where is that speed? And I can feel it, you know, right in the inside of the middle of this. But as I go away, that's where I'm not feeling any real pull. And that's what I don't understand. Is it really going to draw it from further away, or is it just going to be the velocity right in there? It's got to be pulling it from somewhere.
That was my point when I was doing the testing. So I put my anemometer flush to the front of the pipe when I did the first test, so that it's right at the pipe and it's measuring the velocity going into the pipe. And then I did the same once I put the velocity stack on, and that's where I seen the number increase. And I thought, in order for that number to increase, that 4-inch opening, which is the 4-inch cross section, had a higher velocity with the stack than without. So without getting into the numbers of cubic feet per minute, in order for velocity to improve, there has to be more air. So it's coming from my shop. So I didn't worry about it 6 inches away, because it's just more air going in that pipe. And I've got a 6-inch one on my lathe now, and it is dramatic. When I see the dust flying around, I can see the dust from 3 feet away moving towards that 6-inch thing, which didn't do it before, which is, I mean, proof's in the pudding. It works.
Okay, yeah, it certainly wasn't worse. I can see the dust moving into it. If I put my hand further away, I'm not feeling that at all. So it's good to hear what the measurement really is.
Well, and that's my point. That's why I went and bought an anemometer, because I had the same feeling. How the heck do you prove something if you're only, if you can't put some numbers to it, how can you actually prove it? So I didn't care about the units. I just looked at the change. The difference means that it improved.
But let me jump in and say something here. I have experience in air conditioning as an engineer, and the velocity profile on return air vents, it drops off very, very significantly when you just move a few inches away. Where the supply air vent, you can throw it 20 feet or more. The return air vent, it's, you get, a few inches, or you get a foot away, you can't even measure it anymore. So it drops off significantly on return, which is what you're talking about.
Who is this talking? It says iPhone. I don't know who you are.
Yeah, this is Trey Slonup. I'm sorry, I didn't identify that.
That's okay. Nice to see you. Yeah.
Hey, Bruce,
But
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Bruce.
Hi, Jim.
Pedestrian question. What long cure or deep pour epoxy are you using? Like on that one, what was it?
I'm using a Canadian product called Designer Epoxy Deep Pour.
I think I asked this.
We talked about this last week. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, my old man mind. So.
Okay. Unless there's more for Bruce on the pour, I'm going to move along. Mike Peace, you're next. What do you have?
Let me turn the camera back on it. I move and it changes. Several years ago, about 10 years ago, I got this turning in a club swap, and it had these lovely flutes.
Hold it still. Stop rotating it. Hold it still.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can see. Yeah.
And I've never seen anyone else do this except this one turner and this one piece. And then I looked at it and I thought, well, I want to try to do that. So I replicated it. This is the shape of the profile that you have to turn. And then this is my little proof of concept.
So you turn that V as a void in the middle, in the center, right?
No. You shape the inside and the outside with a burr or a rasp or something.
What I mean on your drawing, it's like a Y shape. Is the center
Yeah,
of the Y a
what it
void?
is,
You turn that out?
that's solid wood.
Okay.
And then you come in with on each side, inside and the outside, with rasps or burrs or something.
Nice trick.
But I just wondered if anybody else had seen anybody do this. It's lovely in this particular form.
I saw something like that in a large scale done in a YouTube video of someone from Asia, but they were doing it on like a 4-foot pot kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've
That's
never
that
small.
fella from Vietnam or Thailand who does those enormous things with the wavy rim. They're really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Roy Simmons that you could do that on a Rose engine. Am I correct?
I think you could.
Thanks, Rich.
I don't
I
see
mean,
anybody- Oh,
yeah,
here's
you
Rick.
could. Frankly, I don't know that you would end up with as nice of a flowing curve like Mike was showing there into, at the bottom of it, into the bigger piece, into the bowl, because it flares out from there. I think what you've done by hand carving it, theoretically you could do it on a Rose engine, but I don't know that it would be as easy. And certainly I don't know that it would flow as nicely.
The challenge that I found, and that's why I did this little small one, because it didn't take a lot of wood, I could use small rasp, is getting those flows around so you don't get any sharp edges. And that took a little playing around with a little bit. So that's why I did this little maquette, just to kind of make sure I understood what the process would be in case I do decide to make a video out of it.
You might be able to do some of that on a spindle sander.
You could. On the outside, it would be easier than the inside. It still takes some detail finishing to get the curves, the sharp edges done. It's tedious.
Nice project.
A Dremel with a sanding disc on it?
I did use that to do some cleanup. Okay. I used a burr on a Dremel, and then I used the smallest sanding drum to do the refining, because the burr got way too aggressive. If you weren't careful, it got away from you, and it also tended to burn it. So I would use that little sanding drum to clean off the burn.
Any more questions for Mike? Nice project. And since I have a spotlight on you still, Arthur, you go ahead. What do you have today?
I wasn't really planning on showing anything. I could, but I had a question. I did a video on how I started growing mushrooms a while back, and I was outside and I had tons of road noise. So what I was wondering is, has anyone here ever tried turning a parabolic mic?
The closest I've come to that is turning a Beyblade arena for my grandson. Do you know what they're shaped like? If you have grandsons, Beyblades were big, and they may have been past them now, but no, I've never turned. But that they would have to be kind of thin though, wouldn't they? And they have to have a certain parabolic.
Well, I'll tell you one way you can make a parabola is if you make basically a straight-sided pie plate and put it on a turntable and pour epoxy in there and turn the turntable at some speed, that's going to form a parabola before it comes out. But that's what'll happen in the rotating form there. It'll generate a parabola.
Uh-huh.
John's just trying to knock our epoxying. He's just...
No, I'm telling you, that's a mathematical fact. I used to study this stuff.
Well, I understand you can also use a sheet and create a vacuum behind it, and it will form a parabola as well. But I know they use that for those high-powered magnification mirrors where they actually use it to melt stone.
You could also draw the parabola and turn to a template. That's probably what I would end up doing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I wanted the focal point of the parabola to be inside the cone so that I'm not getting side noise from, I was getting horrible side noise from the streets and stuff like that. So I wanted to avoid that. And I know parabolic mics are very directional. You just get a few
the American Radio Relay League has a number of ham operators that use parabolic antennas, particularly for satellite communications. And so there may be some good instructions there on how to design what you're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
I think you're better off just using a good old shotgun with good side, reduction, because parabolic mics are a mess to deal with because of the bulk, especially if you got a little iPhone under it. So,
I have a $50 shotgun mic that works pretty good in those kind of situations.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to try and do it with wood just because I thought it'd be fun to try.
Well, it would be.
yeah.
Enough of that, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, good question. Another question that came up in the chat was if you blow out your Reeves drive and get all the gunk out of it, what's the right lube to use on a Reeves drive, if any? I don't know either. I've tried a graphite and white lead, and none of them are satisfactory. Anybody? Blank slate there, Ken. I don't know.
Our resident engineer, one of them is missing, Barry.
Yeah, Barry would know the answer. Somebody of you guys who've got your hands up, has somebody got something quick? We got just about 3 minutes left. Who'd like it?
I just wanted to show Barry's drawing of the velocity stack and something I discovered this week. I need just to do a quick share screen.
Go for it.
Use an old photo editor and I blew it up full size. This is one that was in the first or second meeting, and I had done a screen print. I discovered that I have the Statler French curve set, and the middle, whatever you call it, perfectly fits Barry's drawing.
Well, that's because that's an elliptical shape. That's how they make it. Yeah.
So
That's probably how he drew it.
It's in that, I forget what date it is, but anyway, I had done a share screen. You were going to send that out, but it never came out with the email.
Well,
anyway,
you got
I'll stop the share.
You got it on screen now, and anybody who wants it can do a screen grab from that share.
Where'd you get that? Where'd you get the drawing piece?
It was in the second meeting, I think, because Barry, the first meeting we were introduced to the concept, and Barry must have put that up in the second meeting. I had done a screenshot, and then I just played with an old Paint Shop Pro.
I sent Barry's drawing out some week. I'm not quite sure when. I did attach it though to the invitation one.
The attachment that came with that email was a video, or a PDF of an article.
Yeah, but there was also, well, okay, maybe I got it wrong. I thought I'd send it. I'll send it again if I can find it. I probably can.
I have it, but
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I have
well,
it.
I only have a screenshot, but anyway.
So I'm leaving Stu behind. I'm leaving me behind. There was somebody else in here who's turned their thing off. So, oh yeah, Toby. I guess we'll have first dibs next week because we're right up on the hour here, and it's another excellent Woodturners coffee hour. I see 44 on screen now. I think we're up to 46 or so at the height of the hour. So thank you all. Thank you all very much for your participation and your ideas and your questions and your comments. Is what makes this work.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Comments, I think I'm going to go ahead.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
See you all next week.